All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm Sarah Cuff, founder of Eat2Run Sports Nutrition, and it is really wonderful to have everyone here with us tonight. I am very, very excited to welcome Tanya Jones to the Eat2Run mix, a nutritionist. She's been a nutritionist for a couple of years now and has just joined Eat2Run about a month ago. So really happy to have her here and presenting tonight. As we dive in, I just want to quickly introduce her, and then I'm going to pass it over to her to dive in. So I actually met Tanya 6 years ago, back in March 2015, and she came to me as a client, and we worked together on racing weight, on performance, and coping with digestive issues. So not uncommon things that I'm sure most of us here have dealt with. I know I myself personally have. And then I saw her again through some of my workshops. I did 2017, a fat burner workshop she came to. We worked together again in 2018. So I got to know her really well. And then I had the pleasure of teaching her sports nutrition as she went through the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition to become a registered holistic nutritionist herself. And here we are, 2021, welcoming her into Eat2Run. So Tanya believes in using a holistic approach to sport, performance, lifestyle, and wellness. And as a certified fitness professional and registered holistic nutritionist, her philosophy has been built around functional movement workouts, making the most out of available training time, and most importantly, using nutrition as fuel for the body and to support recovery. She has experienced challenges from overuse training injuries, hormone imbalances, digestive disasters. I'm sure we all have our own digestive disaster story, and disappointing sports performances. Again, most of us probably have our own story with that also. So we can relate, she can relate on many levels. Her biggest lesson learned is that all the hardest training efforts in the world can easily be completely derailed simply by not having a solid nutrition strategy that supports the level of work you've put in. The most significant contributions to her increase in athletic performance has been daily and race day nutrition, training with intention, and appropriate recovery. She has 10 years of cycling and triathlon experience and over 6 years coaching athletes to help them achieve their performance goals by using nutrition as the forefront of the strategy. And I'm going to pass it over to Tanya.
All right, thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. That was amazing. And thank all of you for showing up tonight for my presentation on athletic performance through perimenopause and beyond. Just want to let you know that we are recording this session. So if you want to, you can turn your video off if that's something you're concerned about. And if you have any questions during this presentation, if you want to just throw them into the chat box, at the end, I'm going to go through all of the questions on the chat box, and then I'm going to open it up to live questions. So as Sarah was saying, I've had lots of experience. I've had some successes. I've had some disasters. And the way I needed to approach being able to achieve the performance that I wanted was to educate myself and seek help to get where I needed to be. And come really far, and things have gone really well. And now I am again noticing that with the intention and with the strategies I'm currently using, things aren't quite working the way they used to. So something has changed, because I know I've been doing really well. And so I decided to again look and do some research and educate myself. And it seems that I have now started my journey towards menopause. So I need to now look at different strategies that are going to help me still achieve the performance that I'm after. And in doing so, I figure I might as well share that knowledge with you, because I think we all want to be able to perform. We all have goals that we still want to achieve and be strong, fit, powerful, and empowered women as we go forward. So the key takeaways that I'd like you to get from this is we're going to look at the science behind perimenopause and menopause, and then definitely address the symptomatology that you might experience. And I think this is really important because the symptomatology, you might think that you're not training hard enough or you're not eating the right types of foods and that it's you that's doing something wrong. And it very well could be that your hormones are changing and you're doing everything right for where you were, but maybe not for where you are right now. So it's not going to be lack of effort or lack of training or lack of nutrition strategies. It could just be that things have actually changed. So knowing the symptomatology to expect, I think is going to really help you know what you need to do going forward. We're going to look at some potential therapeutic interventions that you can utilize. And then we're also going to look at strength conditioning and training strategies. And then at the very end, I'm going to touch a little tiny bit on nutrition strategies to support your athletic future. But really, Sarah and Katie just did an amazing presentation a few weeks ago. There's a recording of it that I will attach to the email with this recording, so you'll be able to go through all of those nutrition strategies because they do absolutely apply to you now and to you going forward. So what is perimenopause? It's actually the transition from your regular 28-day cycle to maybe a 35 to 40-day cycle. So things are changing. And with that change, there's going to be a difference in the ratio of estrogen to progesterone. And this is why there's going to be some problems. It can start as early as 36. Usually we say it's around 45, but we're all individuals. You may have also had a hysterectomy or some other things have changed. So your perimenopause and going up to menopause journey is going to be individual. You're going to hit those things on your own age. It can last up to 10 years, but where we really want to focus is like the 5 years before your period actually stops. That's where we really want to make sure we're really getting some positive training and nutrition strategies employed. The primary factor that's going to contribute to the symptoms of perimenopause is that estrogen surges and progesterone flatlines. And it's not that estrogen is actually really building up, because both estrogen and progesterone are declining as you head towards menopause, but it's just that progesterone is declining at a faster rate than estrogen. And the reason that's happening is because often you're having an anovulatory cycle, which means you're not releasing an egg, or it's releasing at that 40-day date instead of the 28. And when you release the egg, that's where your body then is stimulated to produce progesterone. So it's the fact that you're not having your period or you're having your period later and later is causing that discrepancy between estrogen and progesterone. And it's that discrepancy in that ratio that's going to cause you problems. If you go to your doctor and you're in perimenopause, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to run a test and be like, you're in perimenopause now, because our hormones are fluctuating. They're all over the place and there's no real definitive number that says now you're in perimenopause. So what the best thing to do then is to look at your symptoms, your symptomatology of what's going on to determine what's going on. Am I in perimenopause? Have things changed? And so we're going to look at some of the symptoms that you might be experiencing or what to look out for. What I first noticed is that training in nutrition isn't quite working. I feel like I just finally got it all dialed in after so many years, and now unfortunately it's just not quite working the way I want it to. Also, maybe you're not adapting as well. If there's fluctuations going within your body, you're not going to be able to adapt to the training that you're doing. Maybe you're not feeling as strong, you're not hitting those high intensity targets. If you've been sleeping really well in the past, maybe now you're not sleeping as well, that could also be a sign that you're in perimenopause. Pretty common, you might start losing lean muscle mass and potentially putting on belly fat or that visceral fat, which is super unfortunate, but we're going to talk about some strategies to sort that out. You might be feeling more fatigue than you're used to. And again, there's fluctuations going on within your body, and that's hard on your body. So you're going to have fatigue. And classic sign is that you could be having night sweats or hot flashes. So that's a pretty staple indication that you might be going through perimenopause. So we know perimenopause. So then what's menopause? Menopause is actually only one moment in time, one period in time where you haven't had your period for 12 months. Often Menopause is referred to anything after you stop having your period. That whole time frame is considered menopause, but it's actually just that one point in time. It's usually around age 51, but again, we're all individuals, so it could be at any point. This is where you could go to your doctor and get some tests, and they can look at different hormone levels at this point, because likely your estrogen and progesterone have flatlined. And so there's not going to be that fluctuation, and they'll be able to determine that. Postmenopause is just the biological state for the rest of your life. And so that's great. It's just another phase that you're in. Often, media and just what we've been told, menopause has got this really unfortunate negative connotation. If you Google 50-year-old athletic males, they all look virile and strong, and they got the nice streak of gray and everything looks wonderful. If you Google 50-year-old women, they have hunched over, they're wrinkled, the hair is gray, but it's not shiny. And that's just a total joke. We're all here because we're coming up to or already in that category, and we look amazing, and we're fit, and we're crossing finish lines, and we're breaking records. And so we need to change the view of post-menopause to being something that's like, oh my God, this has happened, my life is over, I'm not going to hit my targets, to being like, all right, yes, I don't have to worry about trying to do an endurance race with my period. Like, so there's some positives to this situation. So let's just keep it positive. We have control to be able to have the future of our performance, and whatever we want to do, be positive. And so what's going on in this post-menopause place is that estradiol, which is the estrogen that your ovaries produce, it's really low or it's flatlining. And now you have estrone, which is another type of estrogen, but that's what your adrenals produce. And they can only produce so much because they're busy little glands that are making all of your stress hormones. And they will always make your stress hormones first. No matter what, your adrenal glands will make cortisol and all of your stress hormones over and above your sex hormones. So it's not going to be a whole lot going on right there. So estrogen is now declined or flatlined. Unfortunately, some women will also still experience hot flashes in postmenopause up to 20 years. And this is likely driven depending on how much adipose tissue you have. And so estrogen and estrogen metabolites, they hang out in fat tissue. And it's that high estrogen in relationship to progesterone that's going to be causing those hot flashes. So while we're still maybe ahead of perimenopause or menopause, you can work on your body composition so that this isn't so much of a potential problem as you age. So what's happening with our estrogen? Estradiol, which is the estrogen that your ovaries produce. This is the estrogen that helps you with tissue growth, building muscle, maintaining and building bone density, and maintaining blood glucose control. So we love this type of estrogen when it's in a good relationship to progesterone. When that starts to decrease, or you're estrogen dominant in relationship to progesterone, this is where you're going to start seeing those body composition changes. You might get some brain fog, mood swings, sleepless nights, and then those unfortunate hot flashes and vasomotor symptoms. So that's all because of estrogen. The active estrogen that you have post-menopause is estrone, like I said, and it's just produced by your adrenals, doesn't have a lot of activity. It does not build lean muscle or help with bone density. It doesn't have the same composition as the estrogen that your ovaries make. It can help maintain, but it's not going to help you build muscle or build bone density. So this is why it's really important that when we still have estrogen as estradiol, we want to be building lean muscle mass, building bone density, organizing your body composition. There are things that you can do when you have estrogen imbalances. Historically, people have gone straight to using hormone replacement or menopause hormone therapy, MHT. There are also non-pharmaceutical interventions and non-hormone interventions. So you can use things like adaptogens, nutrition and nutrient timing, exercise strategies, resistance training. All of these things can help you with that estrogen imbalance. If you're wanting to look into menopause hormone therapy, this is somewhere where you need to go to your GP and have a conversation. You can also do this in conjunction with your naturopath, but you need to have a conversation to determine if the benefits that you're going to get out of a hormone therapy outweigh the potential risks. And there is definitely some situations where it's more beneficial to take hormone therapy than to not. You're going to look at what type of formulations there are. You can see what kind you need. Do you need estrogen with progesterone? Is estrogen just going to be enough? Have you had hysterectomy or not? And then ideally, what are your symptoms? Because your symptoms are going to determine whether or not you actually require hormone therapy. Current guidelines say that it is absolutely fine for symptomatic women to be taking hormone therapy within 10 years of perimenopause. Symptomatic is a really important word. Just because something is changing doesn't mean you need to replace with synthetic hormones. You want to make sure that you're taking it for the shortest amount of time, because after that, the risks might outweigh the benefits. So just have a conversation, get lots of resources, and make an educated decision on how to proceed. The benefits are fantastic. So if you have vasomotor symptoms, those hot flashes, vaginal dryness, significant sleep issues, and potentially disastrous mood issues, that might be a time where utilizing hormone therapy is going to be a benefit to you. But what it's not going to do is help you build lean muscle mass or mitigate body fat gain. Again, synthetic estrogen does not have the same molecular structure as the estrogen that your ovaries made. They can help you maintain. They're not going to help you build. So you can maintain what you've got. You're not going to be building. And so this is why you also need exercise. And I should have this on here as well, protein. So we know what's going on a little bit. Estrogen's fluctuating, progesterone's declining. You've got potential with utilizing some hormone therapy, but you might not need to go that route. If you don't have mood issues, if you're not stressed out with vaginal dryness, if all of these things aren't happening, then maybe you can use some other things to help you proceed and go forward. And so what we're going to talk about now are adaptogens. And adaptogens are herbal medicine that can help stabilize physiological processes and promotion of homeostasis, which is a whole bunch of jargon that really just means keeping your body at a nice, even keel. That's homeostasis. That's how you maintain the same blood pH. That's how you maintain the same blood viscosity. Your body just likes to be exactly the same way internally all the time. And adaptogens can help with that. They can help to mitigate the response to cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And like I said before, your adrenals will always make your stress hormones before sex hormones. So if you can help to control your stress responses, then you have more opportunities and resources to make available sex hormones. It can help to balance out those estrogen and progesterone imbalances and help with those symptoms. It can be, adaptogens can be either energizing or calming. So the time of day that you're going to take them is going to be important when you choose which one you're going to use. If you do decide that you're going to try out some adaptogens, I suggest you pick one and go with it. Try it out for a while and see if it's going to serve you for what you're after. And really, our lives are pretty stressful, especially right now. We're still trying to figure out how to manage life through a pandemic. So there's kind of this baseline level of stress we're always under. So whether or not you're young, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, adaptogens could be a good benefit for you to just manage that stress response. I'm going to go through a couple examples of different types of adaptogens and what they do, just so you have an idea of what to look for. Rhodiola rosea, it's going to help to reduce the fatigue that comes from stress and anxiety, helps with improving cognitive function, it's a neuroprotective against toxins, it can help with mood, and it helps to mitigate some of those menopausal related cognitive, physiological, cardiovascular, and osteoporotic conditions. So lots of benefits. Schizandra, this one I really like for myself, for energy. It helps to boost energy. It can help with mental performance and working capacity, so that capacity that you can put out for energy. Helps increase blood vessel compliance via nitric oxide. So that's going to widen the blood pressure or blood vessels, help to reduce blood pressure. It's going to increase the excretion of estrogen metabolites. So that's going to help lower that discrepancy between estrogen and progesterone. It induces oxidization in your mitochondria, which helps to give you more energy, because that's what actually gives you energy. It's that oxidation process of an oxygen molecule in your mitochondria. That's how you get energy. And nicely, it will stimulate your central nervous system, and that helps to enhance cognition. Maca, it's a cruciferous vegetable, and therefore it's related to broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and kale. So how could that be bad? It's really nice. It helps with your sex hormone support. So it can help with moderating estrogen metabolism. It's anti-inflammatory, helps to regulate adrenal and thyroid function. And you know that your body's in flux with all of the hormone changes that are going. So any support you can get there is beneficial. And it can improve symptoms of menopause, including hot flashes and disrupted sleep. Just a quick side note about maca, depending on your governing body, some governing bodies are listing maca as a banned substance for competition because some of its effects. So you just want to make sure that you are looking at your governing body's rules. And if you are taking maca and it is banned, you need to come off for a set protocol before your competition. Holy basil, this one is a nice calming adaptogen used to reduce anxiety and depression. It's antimicrobial, helps with boosting or enhancing your immune system, reduces oxidative tissue damage, and just doing any exercise is creating that oxidative tissue damage. Helps to modulate cortisol and improves glucose control. And we're going to cover that in a little bit. And so this might be one of those adaptogens that you would take later in the day if you're trying to calm yourself down for bed. And then the last one we're going to discuss today is ashwagandha. Really nice. It's a hormonal precursor. So anytime you can add to your building blocks to build what you need, that's a benefit. Helps to reduce blood sugar levels by increasing your insulin sensitivity of your cells. So that's a bonus. What's really nice about ashwagandha, it helps to modulate stimulation. So this is the stimulation within your body. If you're really low, ashwagandha can pick you up and stimulate you, give you some energy. If you're really overstimulated, ashwagandha can actually bring you down. So it's a really nice, a lot of adaptogens can do this. They can bring you up or bring you down depending on what you need, because ultimately they're trying to help you maintain that homeostasis level. Anti-stress and immunomodulatory. So it's going to help with your immune system, it increases your natural killer cells activity, and decreases the markers of inflammation. We all know that exercise creates inflammation, and it can help to reduce cortisol, helps with anti-anxiety, anti-depression, and increases your luteinizing hormone. Your luteinizing hormone is the hormone that promotes ovulation. Ovulation promotes progesterone. So you kind of want to have that pathway moving in a positive direction. So we kind of know what's going on. We know we have a few options of how to proceed to go forward, but what's really driving this body composition change? Like I said before, it's that ratio, the difference in the ratio of estrogen to progesterone. When we lose estrogen, we're losing that stimulus for muscle growth and bone density. And we know that synthetic estrogen doesn't do the same thing. And also our fueling mechanisms change. And so what's happening is that we're actually decreasing the amount of fat that you burn at rest and during exercise. So that's kind of a drag, but we can do something about it. Your sensitivity to insulin is decreased. You could also be experiencing a little bit of insulin resistance. And so that's going to limit how much of that blood glucose that you can pull out of your blood and cram into your cells for energy. This is really because of that interaction of estrogen and progesterone and how they modulate blood sugar control. If they're all over the place, your blood sugar is also going to be all over the place. And with that less response to insulin, you have higher levels of blood glucose, and then you're going to have that potential for insulin resistance. But what we can do is counter that with different types of exercise, how we time our food intake, especially for protein and carbohydrates. Women in general have a greater predisposition to utilizing fatty acids for fuel. It's just genetically the way we're built. So we don't really need to focus on that pathway. We're already pretty good at doing that, but things are changing. So you don't need to do your long, slow training in order to promote fat utilization at this time in your life, because you're already pretty good at it. What you want to do is do your long, slow, because that's part of your sport. So of course, if you're an endurance athlete, you absolutely train as an endurance athlete and do the training that's going to best support your sport. You don't need to do long, slow to promote fat burning properties because you're already pretty good at it and things are starting to change, so we can focus on a different mechanism to change body composition. What we want to do then is focus on high intensity interval training to be able to make some changes for body composition, also build lean muscle mass, control blood sugar levels, and move forward with a frame that's stronger, leaner, and better at utilizing carbohydrates and blue sugars for fuel, leaving those fatty acids to be burnt at rest. So we have different goals when it comes to perimenopause and menopause. How we're going to address them is very much the same, but the goal is different. In perimenopause, you still have hormones. So let's strategize doing what we can do while you still have hormones to drive those positive changes. You're going to focus on nutrition and training strategies that still help you build lean muscle mass and increase your bone density, because you've got the estrogen available to do that. And at this time in your menopause and perimenopause journey, you can also start the process of increasing your insulin sensitivity, because we know that that's going to decline as your estrogen declines. So really, you're improving your quality of life now and as you go forward. So that's the goal, doing what you can now while you can to help as you go forward. It's not that you can't address all of those issues in menopause, because you totally can. You just have to do it in a little bit of a different way. And for that, your goal is to utilize neuromuscular stimulation. So we're going to have to use a little bit more brute force. You had estrogen to help you build. We don't have it anymore. I'm still going to make you strong, but I'm going to do it with a bit of brute force. We're going to maintain strength, maintain lean muscle mass, support your bone density that you've got. This is also a really good time to really just be addressing posture, because if you're losing bone density and support, those bad posture habits can really be impacted more. And you're going to want to reduce your potential of diseases like diabetes or metabolic syndrome, and that's having that high blood sugar, which potentially you could have if you don't utilize some strategies to keep that blood sugar low, because you don't have the estrogen and progesterone to drive that process. So like I said, the strategies that we use, they're going to be the same for perimenopause and postmenopausal women. We're going to look at resistance training, we're going to look at plyometrics, and we're going to look at high intensity interval training. And just one final reminder that hormone therapy does not help build lean muscle mass, but it will help maintain it. So you want to make sure we're building while we can. So what do we want to achieve? We want to be able to maintain fast twitch fiber action in your muscles. We want strong, fast contraction or power. And this is all going to be geared towards that neuromuscular stimulation. And that's going to maintain muscle mass, lean mass, and making what you have functional. Sounds like I'm harping on the long, slow stuff. I'm totally not, because we need it if you're an endurance athlete. It's just not going to drive the change that we're after. This, we're talking brute force changes, is going to require brute force work. Long, slow is what you do for your sport, if that is your sport. So you still do it. It's still 100% important. I do it as well. And I think I'm talking about it so much because I'm convincing myself that I still get to do the long, slow as I go through this journey. But the reason we're here, and what I first noticed, was that traditional training methods aren't working. For me, where I'm at right now, and maybe for where you're at, what you've been doing isn't working. Therefore, we need a change. Traditional methods aren't going to improve your bone architecture. They're not going to improve lean muscle mass, and they're not going to moderate or change your body composition. That's fine. We know that we've got other things we can do. We're going to look at we're going to look at resistance training. What we want here is to focus on the strength and power component of strength and resistance training. We want to maintain power, because who doesn't want power for whatever sport you're doing? We want that neuromuscular stimulation that's going to drive strength maintenance within your muscles. We want to maintain muscle integrity. We want fast action, power development, and we want to maintain what we have and then build upon it if we have the hormones to do so. The type of resistance training that we're looking at now is going to be a little bit different than you're used to. We're looking at low rep heavy weight. Don't freak out. It's not every single workout that you're in the gym, you're going to be lifting these huge weights and be all huge and crazy. But we do need to incorporate that low rep, because that's what's helping with that neuromuscular action. Remember, we're brute forcing our muscles to stay strong. This is going to also increase the stress on your bone. That's going to help with your bone architecture. And so for both the neuromuscular action and for the stress on the bone, what's happening is, as you lift a weight, if you lift a 5-pound weight and do a bicep curl, not all of your muscle fibers need to help you do that, just some of them. You don't need them all, it's not that heavy. You lift a 50-pound weight doing a bicep curl, every single muscle fiber, every single neuron has to fire, everything has to go. And we want to make that happen as often as possible. So then if you're a runner and you're making every single muscle in your quad get used to firing, and they just fire all the time, you now get to go faster every time. That's what we're after. In response to having that big, strong pull against your bone, your body's like, oh my God, I'm going to break if I don't sort this out. I need to strengthen my bone as well. So that's how you're going to get that bone density change. It's brute force against that bone with lifting heavy muscles that's recruiting every single muscle fiber that you have. Win-win. So the two main aspects of strength training that we're used to, we've talked about the first one, which is that low rep. What you're probably most used to seeing is that endurance type of muscle action where you're doing the 10 to 12 reps. This is where you're actually fatiguing your muscle to the point that the muscle fibers will tear, then they'll rebuild, and that's how you get more muscle. So that's hypertrophy, you're getting more muscle. You need estrogen to get more muscle, estrogen and protein and proper recovery. You're going to do both of these types of training, but you must lift heavy. As Dr. Stacy Sims would say, you need to lift heavy shit. You need to do it to be able to build your muscles and to have that integrity and full contraction. We also want to look at plyometrics. And this is going to be involving jumping or explosive movement activities. And this is also working on power and muscle integrity. And this is also going to help with any type of sport that you have, because you're going to allow for fast firing muscle contraction, which lets you go faster than you were going before. Doing these movements are going to help maintain that fast twitch and neuromuscular stimulation. Also helps with bone density, because you have to respond to impact forces and explosive up movement forces. It's really important when you're doing any type of plyometrics that you move in multiple directions. You need to move forward, backwards, laterally, you need to jump up, and you need to land down. That's going to make sure that your bones are responding in density all the way around your entire bone. Running is awesome for plyometrics and for impact force, but it's in one plane of motion. You need to also move laterally. Before I go any farther with plyometrics, it's really, really important that if you have any kind of bone density disorder, that you need to seek assistance with a professional that knows how to work with someone with said disorder before you attempt doing plyometrics. Plyometrics have so many benefits for you, but if you don't have the bone architecture to withstand that force, they're now not worth it, and they are detrimental to you. Doesn't mean that you can't do them. You're going to have to work at it in a different way. And this is where you really need to have a professional who knows what they're doing guide you through that process. If you can feel comfortable getting started on your own, you're going to start slow. And this is in regards to volume, not the explosiveness of the activity. So you're just going to try a couple things and work your way up. Don't start with a 30-minute plyometrics routine, because you're just going to hurt all over and it's no good, and your body's not used to those forces. And that's where you get things like shin splints and issues that we don't want to have. That's going to derail our forward progress to performance. A little quick example of a circuit could look like 45 seconds of effort, 15 seconds off, which is a HIIT type sequence. Here you've got lunge exchanges, step up jumps. You're going to step up onto a box and jump at the top. Jump squats, bounding, which is like skipping, but with big steps as you go forward. Lateral jumps or skaters, and then drop jumps. So you're going to go from a raised surface, drop down, absorb that impact, and explosively jump off. So now you're working your bones in all planes of motion. We've covered resistance training. We've looked at plyometrics. We know what's going on in our body. We've heard a little bit about HIIT and that we want to include it. So now we're going to talk about it. Some of the benefits that you can get from high intensity interval training is that it can help increase your insulin sensitivity. It's going to allow you to pull glucose into your muscle and liver, which is like, yes, now I've got the energy to do whatever I want to do. It's going to help increase your lean muscle mass development and help with muscle contraction. It's going to help to reduce total body fat accumulation. Helps with your mood, because who doesn't feel great after a super hard session where you question your life decisions? And it helps with cognitive focus. High intensity interval training is alternating short periods of really hard anaerobic work with a short, less intense recovery. So it's not a total recovery, it's just less intense. Weekly repeated sessions have been shown to reduce visceral fat, increase lean muscle mass, improve your VO2 max markers, and reduce overall body fat. So bonus. The time range for HIIT exercises is about 20 to 90 seconds. 20 seconds is those high sprint workouts. 90 seconds might be a bit more beneficial to endurance athletes. The effort that you're looking for in your work interval is somewhere around 85 to 95% of your max heart rate, and your recovery is 70. So it's not a complete recovery. You should really be doing this session for a maximum of 30 minutes. You're still going to warm up and prep for this session, but your work portion at HIIT should be a maximum of 30 minutes. If you can go longer, you haven't gone hard enough. you really should be questioning your life decisions and then recover and then do it again. Here's an example of a popular model for a cyclist. You could be doing 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off at 90 to 100% of your VO2 max or 100% FTP. And then 15 seconds at 70% VO2 max or 80% of your FTP. You would do 9 of those. So you're just barely recovering to attack it again, do 9 of those, take a 5-minute break, do that again, take your recovery. You've now done a 30-minute session, really hard, and you can move on to the rest of your day. Again, going on again, I pretty much said most of this. Sorry for the double slide. The nice thing with doing the HIIT exercises is that the energy system that you utilize is using carbohydrates. It's using glucose. And when you're using a component for fuel, you then store that fuel. So if you're using carbohydrates, your body's like, oh, I'm going to need some more of those for later. There's a whole bunch of processes that happen, which is an increase in your insulin sensitivity. And it stores carbohydrates into your cells so that you're now ready for that next activity. You're going to store what you use. It helps to decrease fasting blood glucose. So you don't have that available sugar in your bloodstream. So your body's like, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to burn fat. Perfect. So at rest, when you're not working out, you're now using fat for fuel, which we know we're already pretty good at. So let's support that system as we go. You need to do that by using carbohydrates for fuel at a high intensity effort. We're working out really hard. And how are we going to manage all of this? Especially if you're an endurance athlete, throw in being a multi-sport athlete, how are you going to fit in all this training? Because I've just said you need to weight train really hard. You need to do all these crazy high intensity exercises. You still need to do your endurance stuff. How am I going to make all of this happen? Well, you're going to look at periodization. The standard model is usually about a 3-week build, 1-week recovery. And I'm going to suggest that we change that model to a 2-week build, 1-week recovery. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get to your overall performance goal, but you're going to recover really well to be able to hit those targets. And what I have found for myself and for a lot of the athletes that I have worked with is that that 3rd build week ends up becoming a bit of a survival week. We're doing it, but I feel terrible. I'm barely hitting my targets or I'm just under. I'm surviving this week, so desperately hoping for next week, which is a recovery week. So if we change that ratio of work to rest, I now really recovered. I am going to hit those VO2 max or FTP targets. I'm going to be able to run for 10 hours if that's what I want to do because I'm not so exhausted. Takes a little bit longer, but I think that the overall achievement, you're going to hit your targets better and also run a little bit less of a risk of injury. And our goal right now at this phase in your life is that we want to maintain that neuromuscular stimulation and muscle integrity. And remember, we have to do that with brute force. And that's going to take energy. So we want the energy to do that. And we don't want to be so fatigued trying to do that and then get injured. I just said that too. Here is a really basic example. Not saying you should do this. This is just one way of how you could put that together. You're going to have your easy recovery day. So an off day after your long weekend of training. You can now do 2 hard workouts back to back because they're short. So you can do your high intensity interval training. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to do that. You can do 2 of those back to back to complement your sport if you have multiple sports or if it's one. Then the next day after that, you're going to do a little bit of functional training. So maybe instead of going for like an easy 30-minute run, you could do something else that's going to support your sport. Then now you can start building back up towards the weekend. You can have a moderate to easy workout, easy long, because we still need those, and that needs to be easy. You got to stay in that low heart rate. And then you can have a moderate hard, moderate long workout. That you can do because you're coming right into the next day being a recovery day. It's just an example, seeing how you can lay this out. Your adaptation or your recovery week, those 2 hard days, now they became 50% effort days, but they don't need to be wasted. You don't just need to go plod out some junk miles. Let's work on technique. Let's work on drills. You know you can do endurance. You don't need to run 30 minutes easy. You ran 5 hours easy 3 days earlier. So let's work on technique and drills. Then we can get some functional training on Thursday. We can start to pick things back up as we get to the weekend, a little bit easy, moderate pickups, keeping up with your functional training, and then go back into some long endurance. This week, the goal is sleep and increasing your heart rate variability so that you can get right back to business on your next build cycle. Endurance athletes, it's complicated to fit all this stuff in. And so I'm going to suggest that you could do some supersetting within some of your workouts. And so if I'm going to be doing my heavy weight, low rep workout today, I'm choosing squats to be the one I'm focusing on. I'm going to do heavy weight squats. And I'm going to superset that with some step ups, which is I step up onto a box and jump. So now I'm doing my plyometrics. I'm working my posterior chain. And then I'm going to jump on a treadmill and I'm going to run because that's my sport. And I'm going to increase the percentage of incline every minute as it goes. So I'm really working my posterior chain and I'm working it into my sport. So now I can run hills. I've done a heavy lift, I've done plyometrics, and I just did hills all in the same workout, all for the same sport. The challenge I have found in the past is that I would do heavy squats and then the next day try to run hills and I can't because I'm tired. You haven't got to that point yet because you just did 3 to 5 heavy reps. And then you moved on to the explosive power. So you took that strong contraction, you then exploded with power, and now you take it to the sport activity that you want. It could be cycling, it could be anything. And you translate the contraction and explosiveness right to your sport. Teach your body how to do it. And it saves some time. So recap of where we're at right now. I have some more stuff, so we're just kind of mid-recapping. We know that the majority of the body composition changes happen in perimenopause. It's that fluctuation that's starting that process. Unfortunately, this is where we can find an increase in body fat, and we might be losing some of our lean mass if we don't take the appropriate steps. So this is where we're going to take those appropriate steps and look at implementing training strategies and nutrition to be able to counter those effects, because they're happening, and so we just need to do what we can to support our bodies through it. And it's not too late if you're in postmenopause. We just discussed a whole bunch of options of how you can support yourself there as well. So let's start now and go forward wherever you are in your menopause journey. What I've seen, and this is in relation to where you're at if you're in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. There's lots of diet trends that have been really promoted to that specific age frame. And that's quite often it's fasting, either alternate day or intermittent fasting. It's fine, that's an option. It's just really not a good option when you're already in a position where your hormones are fluctuating and you have that stress response already. Intermittent fasting, while can be beneficial, is still stressful to your body. Your body's going to make stress hormones over sex hormones. We're already running out of sex hormones, so why would you support your body with something that's going to stress it more? So it's an option. It's not the best option for this point in time in your life. So I would suggest sticking away from that, although it is marketed to perimenopausal and postmenopausal women every single day, which I think is a tragedy. Another one is the ketogenic diet. Again, this is also potentially stressful to your body, and there's some risks to following this type of diet. So again, why stress your body out? It's already having a hard enough time. Let's support it. And the way you're going to do that is to feed your body. Feed your body lots of nutritious food. Give it the building blocks that it needs. It's already having a hard enough time. Let's just be nice to it and give it some good quality food to be able to do what you're demanding of it. Because we're not here because we want to sit on the couch for the next 40 years. We're here because we want to perform. We're athletes. We have goals that we still have to achieve. I'm going to talk just a little bit about this, and I'm going to focus a bit on the gut biome because Sarah and Katie just did do that really awesome presentation a few weeks ago. They talked about how to fuel your body, and the way is the same. And so you'll get a link to their presentation when I send you the link to this one. Go through it if you weren't able to attend it live. But what you want to do is support your digestive system. You want to support that gut biome, and you're going to do that by adding some plant-based foods to your diet. I'm definitely not saying only plants. You can eat whatever you want, but adding variety to your diet in using plant-based foods just gives you a whole bunch more micronutrients that are going to support every single physiological process within your body. We know that your gut plays a huge role in everything that we do. I mean, in the intro, Sarah told you I had some pretty significant issues, and the majority of it was that my gut health was a total mess. And once I sorted that out, I was able to perform. Your gut biome has direct influence on all systems of your body. And so the more diversity you have within your digestive system, the better you're off everywhere in your body. So you're going to have better responses for your immune system. You're going to have better brain health, help with better tissue repair, and it can also counter anxiety and depression because sometimes it's the gut biome that's causing some of those feelings. Exercise also helps to contribute to diversity within your digestive system. And so if you eat a wide variety of foods, you are then giving a wide variety of nutrients to your gut biome. And so you can have a very diverse population. If you only ever eat kale, you're only going to have kale bacteria in your digestive system. But if you eat kale and bananas and chicken and fish and tomatoes, you're going to have bacteria that eat all of those. Therefore, you have a huge population. The more diversity you have, the more you are able to adapt to things that are changing within your body and the stresses that you're putting on your body. And all of the exercise that we do is stressful. We like that stress, but it is still stressful. So you want to be able to adapt and be able to absorb that stress, recover, and move on. Plant foods, often they're the food of your bacteria. So if you're looking at prebiotics, that's what your bacteria eat. Some things like garlic, onion, banana, asparagus, or apples, that's what your bacteria eat. So let's feed them. You feed yourself to perform, feed your bacteria to perform. You're also going to look at probiotics. And so these are live microorganisms that help you when you consume them. And so those are your fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, yogurt, kefir, and even sourdough bread. So this is just adding more diversity into your digestive system. They play a little bit of a different role, but the more diversity you can have in your system, the more benefits you can get. Sometimes when we're changing our training habits, you can run into the situation of low energy availability. Super common, any stage of life, this is something that's common. And often it happens with individuals who are increasing their training load or increasing the intensity. And you could have a muted appetite with starting to add some of these HIIT workouts. You could be dehydrated, you don't feel like eating. Often we're not necessarily that great at nutrient timing for our activities that we do. You could be busy and then you get in a habit of, I eat this at this time. And while it's great, you're getting some nutrition, it might not be as beneficial as you think for the type of activities that you're doing. And what we want to focus on is if you fuel for your activity versus fueling for a 24-hour calorie clock, because our bodies don't actually reset every 24 hours, then you're going to be supporting your body for what you're doing. And again, Sarah and Katie, they covered this. They've got your back. They're going to give you all the information that you need for this. Just a couple more things on what to think. Like I said, you want to have those plant-based foods for variety. It's easy to get lots of variety if you're adding those in. You want to make sure you have a higher ratio of omega-3 foods to omega-6s to help reduce inflammation. Training causes inflammation, so we want to reduce that and reduce cortisol. Chronic systemic stress inhibits you from adapting to your exercise protocols, which kind of makes sense because that's where we started, you know, almost an hour ago, is that we're not adapting and we're not responding to the methods that we've been having before. And so something's changed. You want to think about the quality of your protein, whether or not that is animal-based protein or plant-based protein. Doesn't matter. You just want to think about the quality of it. And if you want to develop lean muscle mass, you need exercise, stimulation, and protein. Because you don't have the estrogen, or your estrogen is declining, so you're going to have to make it happen. Sarah and Katie covered a lot of this in their presentation. You want to make sure that you're getting protein throughout the day because you want the building blocks all day to build whatever it is you need. You want to build muscle at 2 o'clock? Well, you need the building block to do it. You're not going to wait till I only build muscle at 6 after I've had dinner. So you want to make sure you've got the building blocks to do whatever it is your body wants to do. The dosage, this is just a very basic example. You're looking for about 30 to 40 grams per meal. 15 to 30 grams per snack. Again, Sarah and Katie gave you calculations, or will give you calculations when you look at their video on how to know exactly how much you need to support yourself with your activity level. I'm going to have a blog post coming out shortly that is going to be nourishing performance through perimenopause and beyond. I also am putting together a workshop, which is going to have a lot more examples of recipes and a weekly menu and how you're going to go about doing this. So there's more information to come here. This morning, I put out a blog on strength training for performance. So a lot of it we covered here today. I'm also putting together another workshop that's going to be strength training. So we're going to go through specific protocols depending on a couple of different sports. So we'll be able to know what you need to do and how to plan your own training. So there's more information to come. Tried to cover as much as I possibly could in this really long hour for you, I'm sure, but hopefully it was exciting. Do you have any questions? I'm going to go through the questions that are on the chat box. Then I'm going to open it up to the floor and you can ask questions live. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can reach me at Tanya@Eat2Run.com. And then you can also follow me on all of the socials at B3Fitness. Thank you. All right. I'm going to have a drink and then see what questions we've got. All right, Allison wants to know if she can have access to my slides. You'll have access to the whole presentation, so you'll be able to stop and pause anywhere you want and see what's on the slide. All right, I have a question from Katie, an adaptogen question. What doses do you recommend, and is it okay to be on all of these at once? So I would absolutely recommend choosing one and doing one at a time. It's okay to be on more than one adaptogen, but you're not going to know what's happening and how your body is responding. So choose one. And you also then need to take into consideration the timing because they can do different things for you. So that's going to be something to consider. The dosage at this point, I would say you're going to need to go off the dosage from the package. If you're working directly with someone, you can talk to your naturopath, you can talk to your holistic nutritionist, and we can help you, guide you in the direction that you want to go. But right now, you're going to follow the packaging directions. All right, so I've heard the term, this is from Sigrid. I've heard the term bioidentical hormones. Are these opposite to big pharma hormones? Are big pharma hormones necessarily bad? They're not opposite, they're just different. And so there's different types of formulations that you can utilize. And so bioidentical hormones, they might come from something like yams. They're still synthetic. So they're coming from yams, which makes them bioidentical, but they're still a synthetic hormone. So they're not opposite to big pharma, they're just made differently. And big pharma hormones are not necessarily bad. None of them are bad if you're taking them for the right reasons. This is where you want to talk to your doctor and look at your symptomatology. Do you need to be taking them? If you are suffering from mood disorder, vaginal dryness, sleep disorders, then maybe that's something that you're going to want to look at. If it's because you're not able to maintain bone density or lean muscle mass, then they're not worth taking. The risk outweighs because they're not going to benefit you the same way. This is from Barbara. Are there any negative side effects of using ashwagandha or Shizandra? Not that I'm aware of, but that being said, you need to take it one at a time and see how you react, because the negative side effect could be that it's too stimulating or it's not serving you appropriately. So you need to take one at a time, following the dosages, and then see where things go from there. All right, so I just had a quick question about would I do a session for postmenopause? Everything that I've covered in regards to the strength training and what we've been doing, this is absolutely my fault in poor word choices. I said menopause was one point in time, and then I realized I have referred this entire presentation to menopause. What word I really meant was postmenopause, and I meant to be clear about that at the start, so I apologize. Anything that for the strength training strategies and for the HIIT or for the plyometrics, that is what you can do post-menopause as well, because it's post-menopause where you don't have the hormones available to do what you want to do. If that's not clear, feel free to ask me another question, or you can shoot me an email. Sorry about the discrepancy in my word choices. What's the best way to start a HIIT routine when you're already fatigued? Well, you need to make sure that you're recovered before you hit a HIIT routine. I shouldn't make myself laugh. That's ridiculous. This is when you need to look at how you're periodizing your week of workouts. And so you only want to do 1, maybe 2 a week, depending on your fitness level and where you're at. And you need to stagger that after a recovery day or an easy day. And then ultimately have a lighter day after if you're not, if you've just started doing HIIT routines. And so this is something where you could ask your professional to help you set up a plan. But these HIIT workouts, you are not doing them every day. This is something you're doing once, maximum twice per week. And then you can start small. You can start with that 20-second effort, 10-second rest 8 times. That's a Tabata, and you can go with that. But you can't start these fatigues. You're just not going to hit your target. So it's not going to be worth it. You're going to put yourself through a whole bunch of effort and agony for very little benefit, because you won't have worked hard enough to get the physiological adaptation. All right. I think I've gone through all the questions. If I missed yours, please come off of mute and you can ask me live. And if anyone else has any questions live, I would love to hear them. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that I'm awesome and I covered all your questions and you know exactly what you need to do to go forward. We got one more.
Hi, Tanya, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Vicky.
Hi, Vicky.
And I have a bit of a double whammy. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid, so Hashimoto's.
Yes.
And my doc says that that pushed me into perimenopause.
Yep.
And so the double whammy is the fact that both of those issues are contributing to low energy and fatigue, which are becoming a huge barrier to my running. And so I'm just wondering, when does it stress the body too much to kind of force myself to kind of maintain the runs versus kind of listening to the body and resting and trying to find some kind of new balance with that?
Yeah, so I'm going to say that listening to your body is king, especially with Hashimoto's. What you want to do is you could step back from trying to force running and maybe now look at what types of nutrition strategies you can utilize to support your body in not necessarily recovery, but to support your body in this state of Hashimoto's and be able to support getting as much energy as you can. And then on those days that you feel good, go for it. On the days that you don't force it, because you don't have that sort of buffer of energy. You kind of got, I can do this or I can't. And so there's no benefit to forcing it, because one run is now going to potentially lead to 7 days of I can't pick up my kids because I'm tired. Or you can focus on your nutrition, support your body in as many ways possibly. That way, maybe you have to look at some lifestyle changes to reduce stress where you can. And then when you're feeling it, then you go for it within reason, be smart. And so I think that's probably going to be the best way to go. Don't force it. Listen to your body all the way. You're welcome. I can see a couple more questions. Nope, no more questions. Anybody else have any questions for me? All right, well, this has been an absolute pleasure to share my knowledge with you. As I'm sure you may have noticed, I get a little bit passionate about things, and so I'm all excited and jazzed and ready to carry on with the rest of my evening, and I hope you are as well. Like I said, we'll have some blog posts coming out. We'll have some workshops coming up. You have the awesome presentation that Katie and Sarah did, so you know what to do for fueling your body right now. I'm going to cover some new topics as I go forward. So let's continue our journey together as we go forward and approach whatever performance goal that we're after. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. Amazing, informative presentation, Tanya. Thank you. And thank you, everybody who showed up tonight. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and say good night to everyone.
Really
Thanks,
good
Tanya.
messages.
That was awesome.
My pleasure.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. Chat soon.
Thanks, Tanya. Talk to you soon. Bye
My
now.
pleasure.